welcome to Let's Talk AppSec. My name is Mark Lambert. I'm the VP of Products here at ArmorCode. I'm joined by my good friend and colleague, Luis Guzmán. Luis, how are we doing?
Doing great, Mark. I'm pretty excited about today.
Cool. So Luis and I, we come from different backgrounds. I got over 20 years from an AppSec perspective, really very much development focused. And Luis, you come from the other side, right?
Yeah, the network, endpoint, infrastructure side. And I've got about 15 total years and really focused on vulnerability management and AppSec. About 12 years, I think, is what I have now. It all gets blurry.
Yeah, it does. The older you get, the blurrier it gets. So the interesting thing that you and I have been talking about over our times together is this intersection between our two worlds, right? And how infrastructure and application security are really coming together much more. And the conversations that we have with clients are around how we can kind of bring the vulnerability management together into AppSec, and how AppSec can be driven more by vulnerabilities from traditional approaches. So, Liz, why don't you start us off? What do you see in your role as a solution architect at ArmorCode?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that I've noticed has been the jump from hardware to all digital assets, right? And so when I say assets, it could be the IP address could be considered an asset because it's connected to something. It could be an operating system that could be an asset, right? So depending on where it is that you're looking at, I come from, if it was an IP address, had a MAC address, then that meant it was hardware. Right now we've got virtual machines, we've got instances that can be spun up and spun down in seconds. So everything gets very blurry again to where infrastructure and applications and assets really meet, right? So I think that's the big one for me right now, is how everything's starting to blend together.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's really been the adoption of cloud, then container, then infrastructure as code, and really that your infrastructure now, it's 100%, it's dynamic and it's disposable, right? So you get vulnerabilities from infrastructure, and then I'm saying, okay, how do I correlate that with the application, the product, the software that's being released, because it's being generated dynamically, and having to bring together those different vulnerabilities into this concept of an asset that you talk about, right? It's no longer just an infrastructure asset. It's not a code repository. It's how those things come together to really kind of like deliver the software to the business.
Yeah, and having that connection between, like, you and me, let's say two sides of the house, right? On the side of the house where I was used to always doing the work. The network endpoint guy was always doing the work. You said something was vulnerable, we went back, we fixed it. That's not the case now, right? That's changed a lot. So the dynamic of what we used to do as work 10 years ago to what we're doing today is different.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's consistent when we're talking to application security, or even just cybersecurity more generally, specialists, as they're trying to really get a handle on things. They no longer have the ability to make the changes, right? So you need the collaboration with the development team, because ultimately the development team are going to ones going to make changes to the code, but now also the infrastructure is like, what image are we leveraging from our containers? How are we constructing those? And while you might have insights and ability to make some changes, those changes, ramifications can be very, very broad, and kind of like facilitating that collaboration between the teams.
Yeah, and here's the thing, right? A lot of the customers and prospects that we talk to and that we have, they're all talking about there's disparate systems, but now there's disparate teams as well, right? Because sometimes you've moved the infrastructure team that was historically on their own. Now they're all together with application security. It's all mixed, but they may not be doing the same duties. The roles and responsibilities have also, again, been shifted or meshed. And now we have all of those workflows that used to have a very set standard to all being kind of up in the air. So that's huge, just because the way we do work every day, now we're hearing this constantly. Doesn't matter what size, a small or a big company, they're both saying that.
Yeah, the statement "drowning in vulnerabilities" is one that we've heard quite a few times recently, right? And if you think about traditional infrastructure perimeter defense, you're getting a lot of vulnerabilities and alerts that are coming in all the time. But now it almost feels to me that goes to another level when you start talking about the tools that are integrated into that DevOps pipeline. and being able to say, okay, is this something new? Is this something important? How does this correlate to other findings that we have from other tooling, so that we can do the correct prioritization is certainly seems to be the #1 challenge that I see that organizations face when they're trying to kind of bring these two worlds together. So with that being said, I'd like to call this one to a close. Stay tuned for the next session. There's going to be more to come.